give everything to our work.
Right.
Out of the 0% that's available, we find something partly out of obligation for our kids.
Mm,
And then we have literally nothing left for our spouse.
right.
And in the case of uh, like my ex, I don't want to speak for her, but I'm sure she would have loved to have been recognized and honored as a woman and someone that I'm in love with and feel is sexy and not just like the mother. And I'm not saying I only treated her like that, but like we didn't go out on dates all the time because we had young kids and I was just like 3 out of 4 weeks, I was gone, especially if I think about presence. Like I might have been physically home, but I wasn't mentally home, right?
Mm.
And I was either destroyed from the day that I had or planning for tomorrow or revisiting yesterday. Um, and sometimes my ex-wife would just be like, she could tell, like we had young kids, and she could tell that I wasn't here, right? Like just go and do what you need to do. I had a home office, go and do that, and then get it out of your head so you can be here.
I'm your host, Shah Hurley. Each week, I invite a conscious leader in tech, sales, and beyond to share their inner journey, how they overcome obstacles, how they achieve success while staying true to themselves, and above all, what makes them human beings. I hope those authentic conversations serve as an inspiration for you as you continue your own inner journey of self-discovery, healing, and mastery. Hello, Mark.
Hey, Shah, how are you?
I'm good. I'm so happy for this conversation. I was planning for this conversation for a while now. I think right now it's probably the right timing. And
Perfect. I'm
before
excited.
we get started, maybe we'll have you to introduce yourself.
My name's Mark Macleod. I guess I have maybe a couple of sides to my identity for this conversation. So by day, I coach some of the most ambitious startup CEOs in the world. I've been in the startup world since 1999 in a bunch of different roles. I was CFO for companies like Shopify and FreshBooks. I was a venture capitalist investing in those kinds of companies. I was an investment banker selling these companies, and now I'm a coach. But how Shah and I got connected was actually through yoga, which is one of the giant passions of my life. And I started in yoga in my 20s for the wrong reasons because women yogis were hot and I wanted to meet one. But I just, I was a high flying corp exec at the time and my career was kind of taking off and yoga actually kept me sane. And I discovered Kundalini yoga through Yoga Glow, I don't feel like 2012. I didn't know what it was, but I just gave it a shot and it was super weird, but I felt really amazing afterwards. And fast forward now, and I've completed the 200-hour and 300-hour teacher training with Kia Miller in Radiant Body Yoga. So that's my story.
Wow, that's amazing. In that whole world of like making a lot of money,
Mm-hmm.
fancy cars and houses, that's a lot of people's dreams. And I
Mm-hmm.
wonder what was like the moment you realized, I wanted to become a yoga teacher, I want to become a coach.
There were a couple of moments. So I was a venture capitalist, and in 2012, I now that I'm saying that, I must have discovered Kia earlier. And in any event, in 2012, I was completely disillusioned with venture capital and had told myself that I was inspired by yoga works. And there's like, you know what? There's probably like very few yoga people who have my business background. I'm going to go start a chain of yoga studios. Anyway, I came to my senses and I didn't do that. But I've wanted to be a yoga teacher since then. You know, and then I started, so like I said, I've been following Kia Miller for a long time, and I got really serious about practicing Kundalini with her in 2019. And early in COVID, I started doing the 300-hour teacher training with her with no intention to teach. It was just, I was serious about practice, so I just wanted to keep evolving my practice. But along the way, I was like, hey, this has changed my life. I think I'd like to share it with other people. And so I guess I made a decision last year to be a yoga teacher and finished that actually well with you in
Mhm.
December.
Yeah, I really enjoy our conversations on a lot of things. And then that also helped me to understand more about, people's journey in
Hmm.
it's way deeper than what it looks like from outside. When I look at you, Mark, from outside, you probably fly first class and then, do a lot of fancy things. But the more I get to know you, the more I understand um, about who you are as a person, what you care about. I do remember one of the conversations you and I had. You mentioned that you really love the people you coach, and I really touched my heart. I wonder, I didn't meet you, the previous version of Mark, before you did all the training. I wonder if you can just maybe describe um, the previous version of Mark to me.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, that's a challenge. Well, um, I was at type A Virgo. If you follow the stereotypes of
Mhm.
astrology signs, I was as Virgo as they come. I had to dot every I and cross every T in the world. Everything in the world was black or white. I'm a CPA by training, and so that further reinforced this notion of, black and white. And um, I was a hard charging finance exec, and was a CFO for companies for a long time. And it was high pressure, I personally felt most all startups, they raise money from venture capitalists to try and achieve these crazy outcomes, which means by definition they're losing money all the time, right? They're raising this money and then just spending it. And so I felt personally responsible, even though there was a CEO above me, to make sure that my companies had money at all times. And so that was actually a decent amount of stress in retrospect. And I didn't necessarily have the right tools to deal with that. Like I drank a lot, not to the point of getting drunk, but I'd come home and make a cocktail because I watched Mad Men and Don Draper and it looked stylish, and I had like a nice sports jacket. I was like, I'm gonna have a nice Manhattan now because that's what Don Draper would do, and that's not actually particularly good for you. But I would do that a lot. I Fitness was always important to me. Like I didn't completely let myself go, but in hindsight, my stress levels were way higher than they are now, and also in hindsight, I was way less present than I am now. You know, that's for sure. So more prone to anger, hard to switch off. My sleep wasn't fantastic. The last company I was CFO for was a company called FreshBooks, and I used to joke about having fresh mares, which are FreshBooks nightmares, and they were so common that I would keep a little notebook by the side of my bed because I would solve business problems while I was asleep, and then just be like, okay, I need to write this down. So I guess I was being productive, but it's not like not the most refreshing sleep.
Wow, that sounds like a Superman. Like I wouldn't imagine myself doing that. My nightmares are like being killed or something like that. Um, you divorced. I'm just gonna go
I did.
there. You divorced.
Yeah.
I I wanted to understand the dynamic back then. Like, now you're in a second marriage and you look very happy every time when I, talk to you and then you share about your wife, you're traveling and then you're, going on
hmm
silent retreats together. And then I wonder, just extension of the response you shared, how you showed up in the first marriage. What was the dynamic was like? If you like, you don't have to share everything, but whatever you feel comfortable with.
Yeah, well, I think the fact that I got divorced is not unrelated to what I said before. That's for
Mm-hmm.
sure. Especially if I think about presence. Like I might have been physically home, but I wasn't mentally home, right? And I was either destroyed from the day that I had, or planning for tomorrow, or revisiting yesterday. Um, and sometimes my ex-wife would just be like, she could tell, like we had young kids, and she could tell that I wasn't here, right? Like just go and do what you need to do at a home office, go and do that, and then get it out of your head so you can be here, So it was definitely a source of frustration. I also traveled a lot, in the last years before the end of that marriage, I was running an investment bank. And so I live in Toronto on the east side of North America. I had an office in San Francisco. I was there at least once a month. I had clients in Europe. Like if I was awake, I was working. Now, I still did exercise every day. I still did yoga, and those were the only things that actually kept me grounded at all. But I I wasn't really investing in the relationship. I guess I probably was from a sense of, well, obviously I was providing, like, here's the house, here's money, whatever. Um, and I certainly felt a deep sense of loyalty. But like, I tell this to my clients all the time. So I coach tech startup world's pretty male. Most, but not all of my CEOs are male. And I
Mhm.
see a very common pattern, which I lived, which is like, we give everything to our work.
Right.
Out of the 0% that's available, we find something partly out of obligation for our kids.
Mm.
And then we have literally nothing left for our spouse.
Right.
And in the case of uh, like my ex, I don't want to speak for her, but I'm sure she would have loved to have been recognized and honored as a woman and someone that I'm in love with and feel is sexy and not just like the mother. And I'm not saying I only treated her like that, but like we didn't go out on dates all the time because we had young kids and I was just like 3 out of 4 weeks, I was gone. So, what maybe brings up another thing that these high flying entrepreneurs tell themselves, which is like, I'm doing this for my family, right?
Mm,
But
yeah.
like, my family never asked for that, right? Like, at all. Like, no, they
Right.
said, could you work harder so that we can have a nicer car and a bigger house? Like, nobody ever said that, right? So it's just a rationalization. Yeah, so I, and it was my ex who declared the patient dead. She was the one who was like, I think we're done.
Mm.
And in that moment, it was pretty shocking. Uh, but with a little bit of time, of course, she was absolutely right. Yeah. So yeah, I think we just grew apart. It's like a plant. If you don't water it, it just shrivels up and dies. And I listen, I'm not saying I solely caused the end of that relationship, but I'm only responsible for myself, and I didn't water that plant.
Mm. Wow, that was a beautiful reflection.
Okay.
Now you're in the second marriage. How did that
Yeah.
reflection help you or change anything? Because you can certainly repeat the same pattern over and over again. I've got friends who keep getting divorced and getting married again, divorced and married again. And when I see you, I feel like something probably shifted because you're very happy in current marriage. So
Yes.
yeah, how did you show up differently now?
Yeah. So that first marriage ended in January 2019. And I deliberately took all of that year to just process what happened. Because it was a 18-year relationship, 16-year marriage. We had kids. It was a big deal. And I've journaled for most of my adult life, and I reread a bunch of years. And I no longer have it, but I used to have this farm that was 2 hours out of the city, and I would go there, this big 50-acre property. It was pretty isolated. I would go there by myself. And I stopped drinking alcohol entirely in that year. And I didn't want anything to keep me away from feeling whatever I needed to feel.
Mm.
And so first of all, I reread these years of journals. And just as like cancer cells metastasize and become full-blown cancer, these small little issues in the relationship, you could just see how it led to like the ultimate end of the relationship. It was all right there in pen and paper. Small little tolerations, that just grew. So I definitely had that reflection and learning. Um, I came to realize that the key to a happy couple is two happy people. Each of you must individually be happy. I must be coming into a relationship not because you lack something, but because you think you're pretty great and you want to share your greatness with someone and bask in their greatness. And so I deliberately did not want to date again until I felt like I was complete, and I wasn't going because I was lonely. I wasn't going because I was horny. I wasn't going because I lacked anything, you
Wow.
know? And so I waited a full year.
Takes a lot of courage because I've seen people start to date right away, after they get
Hmm.
divorced for whatever reason
Yeah. Yeah. I had two good friends whose marriages ended at the same time, and one drank his way through the pain, and the other slept his way through the pain, i.e., with other women. And those are just distractions.
Right.
So you, I don't know. It's like if you have unprocessed emotions, they don't go away. You can't push them down, and they'll just manifest in the body. There will be
Right.
some kind of physical symptom if you don't deal with it. And I felt it was important to deal with it. I also felt a decent amount of guilt at the end of that. I felt like,
Mm,
the end of a marriage is a failure. I felt like I was letting my kids down. Um, in the early days, I can only speak from the male perspective, but there's like three perspectives to a guy's identity. There's like your profession or purpose. You're okay. I'm a husband or a boyfriend.
mm-hmm.
And in this case, I was a father as well. Like, so like those three things, right? I was a husband, a father, and I had this career. Like that's my identity.
Right.
And like two of those, it's obviously, I didn't stop being a dad, but I went from seeing my kids every day when I wasn't traveling to like seeing them once a week because I was still running an investment bank when we got divorced. And so it didn't make sense to do joint custody because I was traveling all the time. So it's tremendous disruption. I've come to realize that everything happens for you and not to you. And there's no question that that divorce happened for me, on so many levels. First of all, I wouldn't be speaking with you today. I'd be off
Making
hobnobbing with
money.
some suits and doing deals and whatever. Yeah, flying first class and whatever.
Mm,
I I set an intention in 2019 to redesign my life so that every day was great. I don't think happiness is an indulgence or a luxury. I think it's our birthright. And when we're happy, we people feel that and other people are happy and it's contagious, and that's a great thing to be contagious. And my decision to become a coach, right, to shut down my investment bank and become a coach was driven from that desire for every day to be happy, and also to recognize that running an investment bank was incompatible with being a good boyfriend or husband, right? You can't do both things, not to their full extent. One of them would suffer. And so I shut down I met my now wife, Margaret, in January 2020. And in March 2020, I shut down my investment bank.
wow. What does a
Yeah.
good boyfriend or husband feel like
Oh
or
man.
look like based on your current
Hmm.
definition?
Hmm. I don't know if I've thought about that. Uh, hmm. I think the biggest gift that you can give someone is your presence, like your full attention. Uh, so I think that's the starting point, right? That she knows that she's the most important person in my life,
Hmm.
and feels that.
Yeah.
I think it's super important uh, that she feels safe at all times. Not everyone does in a relationship, right? And we may have disagreements from time to time because that's the nature of a relationship, especially living with each other. But she never has fears for psychological safety, right? She knows that there's one mark. It's not Jekyll and Hyde. There isn't someone that comes out after he's had a drink.
Mhm.
There's one mark. So she is safe to be her full self, knowing that she's on stable ground. And then when we got married, I took Buddhist vows in 2019, not unrelated to my divorce and the
Uh-huh.
reconstruction of my life. And of course, in Buddhism, there's this notion of impermanence, and
Mm,
nothing is permanent. And I brought that up on our wedding day,
mm,
and like I recognize that nothing's impermanent, but I want to be with her forever. So how do I reconcile those two? Each day is a new beginning. Each day is a new commitment, a recommitment. Um, yeah, so I try and live that. And I actually wrote a set of intentions for how I intended to behave, and I shared with her the night before we got married. And so I try and live by those. And if I fall short, I go back to them and remind myself, yeah, yeah, you didn't do that, So I have a little review mechanism in place, like the good type A Virgo CPA that I
mhm.
am.
Wow, that's beautiful. I feel like the reflection, you took it one step further. You're taking accountabilities for whatever actions you wanted to take to better yourself.
Hmm.
It's it's such a beautiful thing for Virgo to have. I know a lot of Virgo friends who are so judgmental, but then when people have the judgmental mentality, showing up, there's a lot of judgments inside of themselves.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, for sure.
when you're
Yeah,
doing
and
that,
I used
yeah.
to be that guy.
So now I'm seeing you taking reflections and actions and reviewing everything. That's like the higher self of Virgo, the best version of Virgo, how they can show up in your, because when you stop judging yourself, you give other people permission to be themselves fully, which kind of comes back to the thing you're talking about. You want her to be fully her. So,
Hmm.
um, psychological safety, we talk about those things in the corporate work a lot. And
Hmm.
when it comes to marriage and relationship, what are the components you think can create that psychological safety?
But you can say anything and not be judged.
Mm,
You don't have to agree, but you can say it. Like it's a safe space.
mhm,
You can be your authentic self. You don't have to filter. You don't have to put on a mask. You can admit when you're low. Like Brene Brown, I think it was on a Tim Ferriss podcast. She talked about how her and her husband, like she'll just say, "Well, I'm a 50% today," and he's like, "All right, don't worry, I got the other 50. Like I got you." Or and the other some days it's the opposite, right? So just this notion of being a team. But I think the biggest thing is you never have to filter yourself, right? You can just be yourself and say what's on your mind. I think that's super important.
Um, have you heard about this like anxious and avoidant attachment concept?
I have not.
I'm curious because it comes out so often lately, and someone would say, oh yeah, I avoid this conversation because of my childhood issues, and I
Uh,
would rather spend time to myself. And then someone who's anxious would be like, I want a connection, I want to have a different conversation, and then that
mhm.
dynamic plays out in marriages often. Yeah, I wonder, like, what are your takes or thoughts on that?
I think as humans tend to make things far too complicated.
I
And we
agree.
tell ourselves these narratives like,
Right.
I don't do this because of that, right?
Mm,
I put myself in this box because of something that happened to me in the past. And I I don't think we're meant to be that complex because at the end of the day, we're just spirit. And I don't think spirit is complex. It's both infinitely complex and infinitely simple all at the same time.
right.
And, I see sometimes on yoga retreats, or I'm going to go a bit of a tangent here, or like ayahuasca ceremonies. I did 5 of them last year, where people are unraveling all of these layers and these breakthroughs because they were just living under all of this baggage. And I never have this, like ever. And I finish a retreat and I just feel more joy than I did before. So either I'm doing it all wrong or they are walking around with way too much baggage. So this notion of these narratives, I think, is just, I think that's a particularly Western concept.
Yeah.
I don't know that it's an Eastern concept at all. Um, but it is important to honor where each person's coming from. Like, so my wife and I went to dinner last week with some good friends, both of whom are, it's another couple, who are also, let's call it on the path. Like they're spiritual people doing spiritual things. And both of the husbands, both of us are like very talkative. Let's talk everything out. And both the wives are like, not so much, right? And so the wives were joking that he and I should just get on the phone with each other regularly and talk everything out and plot. Like I can help him plot his future with his wife, and he can do the same with mine. So we had a good laugh about that. Yeah, so you just have to honor where each person's like. It can't be, well, because I'm anxious.
Mm-hmm.
Now we have to talk everything out because that's not,
Right.
like the proper thing to do would be like to work on my anxiety. Like
Right.
maybe that's maybe that's actually more effective than accepting, well, I'm anxious, so you're
Yeah.
just gonna have to deal with it, and now you're gonna be anxious too, right? So
Right. Yeah. I really love this perspective. And this perspective also comes from your own realization, your own reflections. I think it's important for us all to do the work, like, what comes out from our own life, our direct experiences,
mhm.
and our ability to reflect and grow is more than what, textbook can summarize. And there was a time last year, I Instagram Reels, I kept getting those messages, oh, narcissism, and I started to check the box for my mother, and my husband's like, my
Mhm.
husband might be a narcissist. Oh my God, my mom might be one. And then to a point, I'm like, oh my God, I might be one, look at my own
Mhm.
tendencies. And I went down silent retreats. I was talking to my teacher. Um, Teacher is great. She's one of the best teacher I ever had on those the past night meditation retreats. And she was like, smiling at me, and she's like, yeah, I'm familiar with those narcissism things that's going around right now. But is it kind that we label someone as a narcissist? Is it kind
Mhm.
if we keep analyze people that way? Are we honoring that person as who that person is if we just put those labels, on those people? And I all of a sudden I'm like, oh yeah, that's not kind at all.
Um,
So I really appreciate this perspective that you share the word soul or spirit, and it's simple.
yeah.
But yeah, you went on ayahuasca journey. I didn't really plan to go there, but since you mentioned it, how share more, anything that you could share.
Yeah. So first of all, I didn't bring this up when I introduced myself, but so I have, beyond my professional purpose, I have two passions. One is yoga, the other is music, specifically electronic music. And I've been a rave and after hours and club DJ since the late 1990s. And so as a result, I've done every class A drug multiple times. And uh and I bring that up because it just suggests a certain comfort level to try different things. And I have a good friend, I'm actually an advisor to this company called Retreat Guru. It's like a place where you can go and find, it used to be yoga retreats, but now increasingly it's plant medicine retreats, so psilocybin and ayahuasca. And this friend is a Buddhist. He has a really, really deep practice and has been encouraging me for years to go to ayahuasca. And I didn't because I didn't want to be dependent. I didn't until last year because I didn't want to be dependent on a substance to open myself up. And I didn't want to be attached. It's like, oh, I can't have that spiritual experience unless I take the medicine. And so for years I resisted. Um, but then last year, for some reason, I was just open. So I thought, great, let's just go. And so we went for a week to this place in Costa Rica. We did the medicine 4 nights in a row. And first of all, people he talked about the medicine, and I always just before you talk about judging, so I still judge a little bit because before going, I was just like, that's a rationalization. It's a drug, and you know it. It's not a medicine. I now understand after doing it that it really is a medicine. And I say that because, first of all, it showed up differently for everybody.
Mhm.
Uh, and second, I I've taken a lot of drugs, and when you take drugs, there's consequences. You're
Right.
borrowing from your future days' happiness and energy. And there was none of that with ayahuasca. Uh, on our last night, we started at 7 p.m. and we ended at 9:30 a.m. and we just went for breakfast. And my eyes were crystal clear. I didn't look like someone out of like the movie Train Spotting. Like I was just like perfectly lucid, perfectly clear. Everything was fine. But you know, ayahuasca is considered the mother of all plant medicines, and uh, is considered to be, I'm not going to do a great job explaining this, but like it's considered to be like supremely intelligent, and that's why I say when it shows up differently for everyone, it's because whatever you need, And so I saw people who were dealing with addiction, who were dealing with trauma, rape victims, like people who had tried everything. The guy beside me was in and out of rehab. It hadn't worked, but he had a sustained breakthrough after this. And so I believe in the efficacy of it. It works. That said, I don't know if I'll do it again. I tried it, but I had a really intense night on the second night where it felt like a bad acid trip. And I was just like literally counting malas and chanting to Ganesh, who's my homie, and telling him, like, if I get through this, yoga is my practice. It's like, that's my medicine. I don't need ayahuasca. I'm not going to do it again. So I was telling myself that. And then, of course, the next day I was just like, all right, Mark, you're chickening out here. You're resisting. It
Yeah.
was intense because I was resistant. And so for the third and fourth nights, I had no resistance. I let go, and it was pure bliss,
Wow.
pure peace. And my wife went with me, and her heart just broke open. And she's there the next morning, and she's like, am I going to be like this forever? Like, oh my God, like there's no problems in the world. Like I can just heal everyone with my love. It was amazing. So, it's a cool thing, but I'm back to, I don't feel I need it, I guess is the
Mm,
thing. I've
that's good.
experienced it, but I think people do it a lot. Again, this goes back to your observation earlier about,
Hmm.
or what we were talking about, like the stories we tell ourselves and these issues that we build up as part of our identity. So I got to do a ceremony to remove each one of these issues. And like,
Hmm.
I don't feel that, so I don't,
Yeah.
I'm as screwed up as anybody, but I don't need a bunch of ayahuasca to do the work.
Yeah. You're like, I did it. I went to Peru with my husband. The shaman said, some people just need one or two, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
You're one of those people that she talked about. And there are
Mm.
people who just forget about the essence, the heart of this medicine, and turn this into another addiction problem and keep going on
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
repeating all those ceremonies and nonstop. And um, I'm curious for you, what did you learn about yourself in those retreats that you were not aware of before those ayahuasca trips?
Hmm. Um, I don't know. I don't know if I have a specific learning. I'll say this. When I went the previous year to India for 2 weeks with Kia Miller,
Hmm.
and when I left the ashram, I did have a learning, which is enlightenment is just love.
Wow. Mm.
And if you live love, if you are love, you love and you're open to love, you're enlightened. And if you're just there all the time. And so I had a selfish goal for ayahuasca, which was to get there, just to
Mm.
get back to that state.
Hmm.
And so when I talked about those third and fourth nights being pure bliss, that was it.
Hmm. Ah.
Just, just, just radiating peace and love. There were
Mm.
no problems in the world. Didn't care about anything. Loved everyone.
Mhm.
Um, it was great. So it was less of a learning and more of a desire, which you could say there was some attachment to. So I probably have some work to do there, but I desired to get to that place.
It's a good place to be, full of
It's
love
a
and
good place.
light.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there are worse places you could be. That's for
right.
sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about. Second night, my husband and I both had death. I thought I was gonna die, and I was like, I really thought I was gonna die, like in the middle of
Mhm.
nowhere in Peru, and no one would know. My parents are all the way in
Mhm.
China, and then I thought I was gonna die. My husband thought that he was gonna die. He thought, there's so many things happened, and then eventually he and I sat on the grass in the rain for hours after the ceremony was done. We're just like heart to heart conversation. I talked in a way that I never did. It's just so soft. Like I
Mhm.
used to be this person, kind of like my mother, like a lot full of protection. Like, I
Mhm.
put on armor and then, show up in my marriage in a way that I feel like I'm protecting myself from being hurt.
Mhm.
When I see my
Mhm.
parents
Mhm.
went through divorce as a child, you know, my dad used to say, men all cheat. I'm like, oh, that was such a, like a
Mhm.
hurtful belief that was planted inside of me when I was a child. And um, so going into my own marriage, and I had all those beliefs that got me to feel like I need to protect myself. And then so I become very hard in a way. My communication was hard. It was not easy for me to trust anyone. And the
Mhm.
second night, when you're talking about that blissful feeling, I had it. And
You think of a baby that's born, they're pure, right?
yeah,
They're just open. There's no layers, no armor. We're obviously completely dependent also, but like they're just pure. That's our natural state.
yeah.
So if we can get back there, it's a good thing.
What do you think makes us human being? I ask this question every single episode. I'm curious about your
Hmm.
thoughts.
Hmm. Uh, well, this mind of ours, again, I don't know what a monkey's mind is like, or
Mhm.
a whale's mind, but this ability to introspect, this ability, I can be here right now I'm 3 time zones away from you, but I can instantly close my eyes and imagine I'm in San Francisco. I can be anywhere, any place, anytime like that. I can dream. I can turn dreams into reality. I can transform resources. We take these natural elements and we turn them into Tesla batteries, right? Like we can change the world. Um, we can go on this outer journey into outer space and then go on this inner journey, which I presume, because I'm in the beginning of it, is infinite, right? So we just have this capability that I don't know that other beings have. Uh, I don't know why we're here. I presume there are other intelligent beings elsewhere. I don't know why the universe exists at the size that it is without some purpose. So yeah, I'm pretty curious about all of these questions.
Mm. Yeah, it's a sense of curiosity that drives us to keep going, and discover
Hmm.
what's more that we don't know yet in this moment. Um, for people who are going through, say, a difficult time right now, whether it's probably like, say, going through a challenging time in their marriage, imagine that time that you went through when you were going through, your divorce and figuring out who you are, how you wanted to show up. What is the one question you would offer them to ask themselves to reflect on the right direction? There's some reflection question that can get us to a direction that pull us down. I wonder, what would you offer to them to help them to keep going?
Yeah, I'll offer a question and a practice. The
Okay.
question would be, how is this serving me? Why is this for me? And if you're struggling to answer that in the moment, to look
Mhm.
back at prior difficult situations, because it'll probably be easier to connect the dots and realize how it was ultimately for you.
Mm.
But the practice I would suggest is a gratitude practice. I started one in the maybe the day after my marriage ended,
Mm.
and every day would write down 3 things that I'm grateful for.
Mm.
And I found that even in the hardest days, there was something to be grateful for. If nothing else, I made it through today. Tomorrow is going to be easier. Uh, and I've learned through that practice that there's always something to be grateful for. And that's just sort of tuned me towards gratitude all the time. And I just like it's the more I'm grateful, the more I get things to be grateful for. So it's that practice has changed my frequency, I would say.
Yeah, it's not easy to find things that we're grateful for when we're going through difficult times. That's why it's called the practice. So we have to
That's right.
keep
But
doing it.
even simple things like I
Hmm.
don't know, my cup of coffee. How many people conspired to bring me that cup of coffee, right?
Hmm.
I brew the beans, process the beans, package them, like the milk that I put in it, like everything's connected, the fact that I do yoga and like I my body is capable of doing yoga. Like that's amazing. Like I don't know, like my work that I do, there's always something to be grateful for.
Yoga, how do you do yoga differently nowadays? Because you mentioned that in the beginning times when you did yoga, it was the intention was different. Maybe share a little bit more how you tend to your yoga practice nowadays.
Yeah, so in the beginning, uh I was a Bikram practitioner for a while, and that really suited my type A high achieving self. Um and my competitive nature, I guess formerly competitive nature. And I guess I used to think that yoga was about advanced poses and doing complex things and being super, super bendy. And I now realize that actually the real practice is inwards and that the magic is in meditation. And so increasingly, um, that's the focus and the purpose of, so I do sadhana every morning, but it's not, I don't view it as a workout. I'll do my practice in the morning is quite simple. Um, and so it involves a bit of asana to warm up because I'm 54 and my back's going to be a little creaky when I wake up in the morning. Some asanas, some kriya, some pranayama. I do sat kriya every day. And then I sit. But I find that gets rid of the sluggishness and just brings me to the right frequency. I tune in to gratitude then because I'm grateful for the practice. And, I set my intentions for the day, right? To show up and be of service, for the day. So, I don't know, it just gets me to the right place. And sometimes, like, at the end of the day, today I'm going to do a bigger practice. And, so sometimes I'll do just a straight up vinyasa or something if I don't know if I was really stiff from a workout the day before. So
Mhm.
sometimes there'll be more than one practice in the day, but the morning sadhana is essential.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Mark. When I talk to you, I really see um, this energy of like I'm taking full responsibility of my life. It doesn't matter what's not going well, but I'm turning inward and see what I can do differently, what I can change myself, my attitude, my frequency, so I can be happier and I can be more in service to the people I can be
Mm-hmm.
with my full presence. I feel like that's super powerful because nowadays there are people who feel powerless, right? I think there is an opportunity. I see a possibility for people potentially can turn 180 degree and to another direction and just to see how things might be differently. For people who are still like, working on their marriage, I do remember our you and I chatted when we were in Mexico on our retreats. You mentioned about some strategies to keep the marriage working. Like, what are some
Mm-hmm.
tips or things that you find helpful to keep the marriage like.
Yeah, my wife and I have this marriage meeting. It
Mm,
used to be weekly. We don't do it weekly now, but on a pretty regular frequency, we get together. It's on a Sunday morning. And we begin, it's always the same agenda. What are we grateful for? What did we recognizing something in the other person that we noticed since last time we met? So you're not taking each other for granted. Um, are there any chores. So, oh no, sorry. The next one is issues. Are there issues? Let's get them on the table. Let's not allow small things to become big things. Let's not leave things unsaid. Um, and so there's a regular place to bring up issues. Next is chores. Are there just let's divide and conquer what needs to get done, and end with let's plan for some good times. What are we going to do? That is fun and is not a chore. That is just purely for joy until next time. And so if you unpack these elements, the gratitude thing is super powerful because you never take each other for granted. You notice. And the issues thing is great because sometimes you can be angry in a moment, but
Mhm.
if you know what, we're going to be meeting on Sunday, I'll park it. By the time Sunday comes around, you realize, it's not that big a deal. Uh, and if it was a big thing, then you bring it up not from an emotionally charged place, which means you can have a better conversation. The chores, that's self-explanatory, that's fine. But maybe I don't know, to play on gender norms. If a guy's off, you know, thinking he can just focus on his career, well, this brings him back down to reality. He's like, no, you actually need to like mow the lawn and do other stuff too. Like you need to be a normal human being. You can't just be a captain of the universe or whatever. And then the plan for good times is just like, hey, let's not take each other for granted. Let's like really recognize again, we don't, my kids are older now, they don't live with us. But if we did have the kids, then recognizing, well, she's not a mother, she's also my wife, and I'm in love with her, and let's spend time in that context. So that's been a really powerful practice.
Wow. I started to do it with my husband after he shared this with me, and I noticed the changes. So I'm glad we are having this conversation. Hopefully, your reflections and inner journey can be inspiration for other people, um, whether it's just on personal level or in their relationships. So,
Hmm.
anything else that you think you wanted to share and that we haven't touched yet before we end our conversation?
Yeah, I'll share a final thought only because it's timely because you are doing a module on self-mastery right now.
Yes.
And mastery is a core value for me and has been for a very long time. I studied martial arts for 6 years in high school and early undergrad, and it was a foundation of my life because it created discipline.
Mhm.
And, you know, if I take a step back, so you can, like, I sound North American, but I'm actually Scottish. I come from a tiny island in Scotland. I lived there till I was 11. And I was destined for a very average life. Like my best friend on the island, who's still there, has one job in like the grocery store on the island, bagging groceries part time, and another job at the one taxi company, driving a taxi part time. That's how he makes a living. That would have been my life if I stayed here. You come to North America where like anything's possible. I happened to do martial arts for a long time and I had this just foundation of discipline and it just became it was like this perfect I don't know recipe for achieving just getting the most out of my life. I think that humans have infinite potential, right? I see this all the time in my coaching world, right? I coach so first of all, I was the first CFO of Shopify. um, Toby, who started Shopify, is a high school dropout. He didn't even want to be a CEO. He wanted to be a chief technology officer, and he reluctantly became a CEO. And now he's one of the best CEOs in the world, running a 10,000 person company worth, I don't know how many billions it's worth. And by the way, he's taught himself to be a professional race car driver. He's a race car driver at the same time. He is an illustration of infinite potential. Mark Zuckerberg dropping out of Harvard, and look what he's done with Meta and how the vision just gets bigger and bigger every year. So um, anyone listening has infinite potential because we are all spirit and spirit is infinite. And when you think about someone doing something extraordinary, like I don't know, a sports athlete or a musician or whatever, what do we say? We say they're inspired, What is that? It's in spirit. I've connected to spirit. I've connected to my potential. So I would say that any success, however you define that word, that I've achieved in my life, it's because of that commitment to self-mastery and always showing up, always doing the work, never taking myself for granted, and just getting 1% better every day. And if you graph 1% over a year, it's a 37x transformation. Just little changes, just get a little bit better every day. And the key to that is self-awareness, right? If you think your shit doesn't stink, well, you won't find 1% to get better. Whereas if you do the review, if you journal, if you pay attention, you'll find, oh, I could do this a little bit better. And it's not to put pressure on yourself, just enjoy it, like just enjoy the process of living and try and be a little bit better each day, So that'd be my thought.
Yeah, I really love that. And it reminds me of this a book we've been reading in Self-Mastery, Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna, he's a warrior, like the spirit you're talking about, whereas like it's literally this warrior spirit that he was going to war. But sometimes I often think whether there's any war going on outside of us or it's within us, what are we fighting for? And then the thing that Krishna was talking to Arjuna in the book, and that kind of was inspiring for me. He said, this is your duty. You have to fulfill your duty. You have to stay in the battlefield. You cannot retreat. And then so that's how I felt about what you're talking about, right? The self-mastery. What can we do to stay in the battlefield? And battlefield meaning being alive,
That's right. Yep.
Yeah, engaging with whatever is present. So that comes to our end of our time. I'm so grateful for you, Mark, and I'm so glad I met you and I learned a lot from you. And I know this conversation will inspire a lot of people.
Thanks for having me, Shah. It was a true pleasure to see you. I wish we were in person, but really great to see you.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoy the show, don't forget to subscribe and share the show with your colleagues and friends. I'll see you next week.